picture this scenario because, I mean, it is something almost everyone has lived through at least once.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So you are out on a date, or maybe you're spending an evening with someone you are deeply, romantically interested in. The environment is perfect.
The lighting is good. The food is great.
Exactly. The lighting is working for you. The conversation has this really great rhythm, and you have been upbeat. You are putting your absolute best foot forward.
Yeah, you're on your A game.
And then it just happens.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, this heavy, undeniable wave of pure exhaustion hits you right in the center of your chest.
It's the worst feeling.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like, it has been a long week, and your social battery just completely flatlines. Your face falls, your physical energy drops, and the atmosphere in the room instantly goes dark.
You can physically feel the vibe just evaporate in real time.
Yes. You sit there, and the internal monologue immediately switches to, I've ruined this. I've completely tanked the night.
Because it is a profound, almost biological shift in the room, you go from this state of vibrant connection to a stagnant, heavy silence.
A totally dead silence.
Right, and the immediate internal reaction is usually a massive spike in cortisol. Your brain recognizes the social disconnect, and you just feel terribly, terribly uncomfortable.
Which brings us to what we're talking about today. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today, we are taking a close look into the underlying mechanics of that exact agonizing moment.
It's such a relatable moment.
It really is. We are exploring this fascinating framework regarding romantic psychology and conversational dynamics. And the mission here is specifically to deconstruct how to rescue a ruined vibe.
Because it can be rescued.
Right, it's not a lost cause.
Right.
But the focus of this deep dive is on navigating that sudden drop in energy when dealing with a partner who possesses what the source material calls a high pride personality.
Which complicates things significantly.
Oh, massively. We need to figure out how to recalibrate the room without losing your dignity, or making the situation exponentially worse.
Understanding the stakes here is just critical for anyone listening. Because, we all experience these sudden energy crashes, right?
Yeah, we're human.
Exactly. It is a fundamental part of having a central nervous system. But the framework we are exploring today makes this really counterintuitive argument.
I love this argument, by the way.
It's so good. The argument is that the momentary drop in energy is almost never what damages the interaction.
Wait, so the exhaustion itself is just neutral?
Entirely neutral. The real damage stems from our clumsy, panicked attempts to fix the exhaustion.
Right, the scramble to make it better.
Exactly. So today we are walking through a very precise step-by-step psychological progression designed to basically reset the temperature of the room.
Without triggering the defensive mechanisms of that high pride partner you're sitting across from.
Right. So jumping right into the mechanics of this romantic damage control, we really have to start with the panic itself.
Yeah, let's talk about the panic, because the initial premise of this text offers a massive psychological relief, I think.
A huge sigh of relief.
Right. It says that showing a dark, tired, or disengaged expression for a fleeting moment does not destroy the foundation of a relationship or a date.
We really have to dismantle that illusion of ruin.
Yeah.
Because when that vibe drop happens, our cognitive bias just leans straight toward catastrophizing.
Oh, immediately. We go right to the worst-case scenario.
We project our own insecurity right onto the partner. We assume they are sitting there thinking, wow, they are so bored by me, or they find me totally uninteresting.
When in reality, that's probably not what they're thinking at all.
Not at all. The reality is far more grounded. Everyone has mood fluctuations. The person sitting across from you possesses a subconscious understanding of human fatigue.
Right, they have a body too. They get tired.
Exactly. They know what a long week feels like. The momentary silence is honestly just a biological pause. It's not a referendum on the date.
So, okay, let's unpack this. The core issue, then, isn't the physical reality of looking tired.
Yep.
The issue is this bizarre theater performance we launch into immediately afterward to cover up the fact that we look tired.
The overcorrection, that is where everything falls apart.
Right, the overcorrection. It's like, if we look closely at the psychology of social overcorrection, it is totally driven by a fear of rejection, isn't it?
Absolutely. When we panic, our instinct is to unnaturally plaster on this bright, synthetic attitude.
Oh man, the fake smile.
Yes, you force a smile that absolutely does not reach your eyes. Your vocal register jumps up an entire octave.
You start talking like a cartoon character.
Right. And you suddenly adopt the physical mannerisms of someone who just chugged like 3 espressos.
Which is terrifying to watch.
It really is. The problem is that human beings are highly attuned to inauthenticity. the partner immediately detects the performance.
The mechanism here reminds me of tripping on a sidewalk.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right, like if you are walking down the street and your toe catches an uneven piece of pavement, you stumble.
Sure.
But the stumble itself isn't what creates that agonizing social friction.
No, it's what you do right after.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the weird, unnatural jog you do immediately afterward to pretend you meant to do it. Or like the way you aggressively check your phone to look busy.
Yeah, suddenly you're fascinated by a blank screen.
Right. The cringe doesn't live in the mistake, it lives entirely in the cover-up.
That is so true. The tension is generated by the friction between reality and performance.
The friction, yes.
The reality of the situation is your fatigue. That's a fact. But the performance is your frantic attempt to project high energy.
And the other person is just stuck watching this happen.
Right. The person across from you is trapped in the gap between those two states.
Mm-hmm.
They are watching you behave radically, which triggers their own sense of unease.
Because they don't know what's real.
Exactly. They don't know whether to respond to the physical reality of your exhaustion or the frantic reality of your performance.
It's super disorienting for them.
It results in a state of emotional contagion. Your anxiety literally becomes their anxiety.
Okay, but hold on. Let me present an objection here, especially for anyone listening who tends to be, highly empathetic or maybe a chronic people pleaser.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you physically slump, the energy dies, and a heavy silence falls over the table. Basic social conditioning tells us that inaction is a crime.
It feels illegal to just sit there.
Right. Doing nothing feels like you are abandoning the other person in a void of awkwardness. Doesn't human decency dictate that we must take immediate action to bridge that silence?
That instinct is incredibly common, and it highlights exactly why this dynamic is so dangerous.
Because we do the wrong thing.
Yes. Our immediate response to social discomfort is to deploy a fix. And the most common tool we reach for is the apology.
Oh, the endless stream of, I'm sorry.
We launch into a barrage of it. I'm so sorry, I'm just tired. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to zone out.
It's like a reflex.
But relying on the apology reflex leads directly into a psychological trap. And the depth of that trap is completely dictated by the personality architecture of the person you were apologizing to.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. This is where the framework introduces a highly specific variable, right? The high pride partner.
Yes, the high pride personality.
Because the source text explicitly warns against relying on apologies when dealing with this specific personality type.
To understand why, we really need to analyze what an apology actually accomplishes mechanically in a conversation.
Like what it's actually doing to the room.
Exactly. An apology acts as a highlighter. It forces the partner to hyper-focus on the awkward event.
You're shining a spotlight on the mess.
Yes. Instead of letting the silence pass as a fleeting moment, you are cementing the mistake into the narrative of the evening.
You are demanding that they look at the flaw. You're saying, look how tired and awkward I am.
Right. Furthermore, when dealing with a high-pride individual, the stakes change dramatically.
So how does the text define a high-pride individual?
High-pride individuals are characterized by a hypersensitivity to power dynamics.
They care a lot about status.
Exactly. They are acutely aware of being looked down upon, and they possess this rigid self-concept that requires a baseline level of respect or authority to feel secure.
So if we visualize this, relying on a barrage of apologies is kind of like playing a game of conversational seesaw.
I like that. A seesaw.
Yeah, like the moment you push yourself down to the ground with self-deprecation and repetitive apologies, the physics of the dynamic dictate that you are throwing the high pride partner up into the air.
You're throwing them into a position of superiority.
Right, you're literally forcing them to look down on you.
That is the precise sociological mechanism at play here. When you take an unnecessarily low, submissive stance, a high-pride individual just absorbs that dynamic.
Their ego just drinks it up.
Their superiority complex unconsciously activates. They might begin to adopt a condescending tone or a bossy attitude.
Which is so frustrating when you're just trying to be nice.
Well, and it doesn't necessarily mean they are malicious. It means you have created a power vacuum by shrinking yourself, and their personality type naturally expands to fill that vacuum.
It's fascinating. It's a total paradox. The apology is traditionally viewed as this, social lubricant designed to smooth over friction.
That's how we're taught to use it.
Right. But in this specific context, it actually weaponizes the other person's ego. It's like feeding a gremlin after midnight.
That is exactly what it is. You think you're helping, but you're creating a monster. which is why the framework emphasizes that apologies are not a more is better scenario.
They have diminishing returns.
Worse. An apology is a tool that actively degrades in value the more frequently it is used.
Okay, but where exactly is the tipping point? Because the text says an apology starts as a light courtesy, but becomes a burden if repeated.
Yes.
So at what exact point does an "I'm sorry" stop being polite etiquette and start actively destroying the balance of power?
That's a great question. The transition occurs the moment the apology shifts from addressing an isolated behavior to defining your position in the relationship.
Oh, wow. Okay, break that down for me.
Well, a light courtesy addresses the moment, right? Like acknowledging a yawn or a momentary lapse in attention. Oops, sorry, zoned out.
That's fine. That's normal.
Right. It becomes a burden when you are essentially asking the other person to continuously manage your guilt.
Ah, I see.
When you over-apologize, you are transferring the emotional labor onto the high-pride partner. You are demanding they step down from their current emotional state to reassure you.
You're begging for them to say, no, no, it's okay, you're fine.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
You are asking them to absolve you. And to a high-pride individual, that requirement feels really heavy and irritating.
They don't want to be your therapist on a date.
No, they don't. To prevent the relationship from crystallizing into this hierarchy where one person is perpetually at fault and the other is the generous forgiver, a completely different conversational architecture is required.
Which brings us to the core strategy presented for this exact scenario. The light touch.
The light touch, this is where it gets really practical.
Yeah, the entire concept revolves around minimal self-disclosure. To maintain that conversational equilibrium, the guidance suggests addressing the vibe drop exactly once.
Just once. And doing so with absolute neutrality.
The mechanical execution of this is so fascinating to me. The framework provides a specific example for this, right?
It does. It says to offer a brief, relatable, objective reason. A phrase like, Fridays make fatigue pile up.
Fridays make fatigue pile up.
You state this fact, and you allow your natural physical demeanor and tone of voice to carry the rest of the communication.
Let's look at the construction of that sentence, because it deliberately avoids the internal locus of control.
Yes, it's entirely external.
You aren't saying, I am so exhausted or I am crashing right now. You are placing the blame on an external universal reality.
Friday.
Exactly. Friday is the bad guy, not you.
That externalization is the genius of the light self-disclosure. Think about what happens when you over-explain.
Oh, I've been there. Detailing the argument I had with my boss, the terrible commute, the lack of sleep.
Right. When you do that, you vastly increase the cognitive weight of the conversation. It gets so heavy. But by stating a simple objective fact, you provide a logical, easily digestible explanation for the drop in energy.
And crucially, it removes the partner's internal paranoia.
Yes.
Because before you provided that external fact, their brain was running through a checklist of catastrophic assumptions.
Did I say something offensive?
Right. Are they bored with my story? Is there spinach in my teeth?
You are effectively rescuing them from their own cognitive distortions. You provide a neutral data point that proves their fears are completely unfounded.
And because the statement is entirely flat, you aren't elevating them into a position of superiority.
Nope, nor are you diminishing your own status. You are holding the power dynamic perfectly level.
I think of this like pulling off a Band-Aid.
Okay, yeah.
You acknowledge the discomfort for a fraction of a second. Ouch, that stung. And then you immediately move forward.
Don't dwell on it.
Exactly. If you peel off the Band-Aid, hold it up to the light, point out the sticky adhesive, and ask the other person to examine the hair it pulled out.
Gross, but yes.
Right. Everyone just feels uncomfortable. You're
Yeah.
just extending the duration of the awkwardness.
The more verbal layers you add to justify your state of being, the heavier the atmospheric pressure in the room becomes.
For you listening, consider how this applies to everyday interactions, not just dates.
It's universal.
Think about the reflex to over-explain a minor error just to manage someone else's emotional reaction. Like if you spill a drop of water on the table, the instinct is often to launch into a monologue about your clumsiness.
I'm so clumsy, I always do this. I can't believe I spilled the water.
Right. But what happens if you simply offer a neutral fact, like the glass was positioned closer to the edge than I realized?
It completely alters the way the other person processes the event.
It denies them the opportunity to pity you or look down on you. It's just a physics issue.
Exactly, it's objective. Now, this strategy does raise a vital secondary issue.
Okay, what's the catch?
Well, the light touch successfully stops the hemorrhage. You have bypassed the apology trap, you protected your dignity, and you circumvented the partner's high pride.
Which is great.
It is great. However, You are now sitting in a quiet, neutral room.
Ah.
The negative energy has been neutralized, but the positive energy has not been restored.
We've reset to zero. The vibe isn't ruined, but it certainly isn't romantic or engaging yet. It's just flat.
The environment is stagnant. So how do we reignite the interaction?
That is the million-dollar question.
The framework introduces a highly mechanical conversational tool designed to actively raise the temperature of the room. And it does this without requiring a massive output of emotional energy on your part.
Which is key because you're still tired.
Exactly. You don't have the energy to do a tap dance.
So this is where we get into the concept of cognitive hijacking through questions.
Cognitive hijacking. It sounds intense, but it's brilliant.
The premise is that the quality of the very next topic you introduce dictates the survival of the mood. The absolute mandate here is to ask a question that forces the partner to actively think.
The example provided in the framework is deceptively simple. It says to ask a question along the lines of, what day of the week do you like?
What day of the week do you like?
On the surface, that sounds like basic small talk.
It does.
But if we analyze the psychology here, it's doing some really heavy lifting.
It really is. It relies heavily on cognitive load theory.
Okay, walk me through that.
The human brain has a limited amount of working memory. It's essentially a restricted amount of RAM available for processing information at any given moment.
Right, we can only hold so much in our heads at once.
Exactly. When you ask a specific categorical question, the partner's brain must allocate resources to access memories, evaluate their personal preferences, and construct a coherent verbal response.
They have to actually work to answer it. Yes. They don't have the processing power to simultaneously formulate an answer about their favorite day of the week while clinging to the awkward emotional resonance of the silence from 2 minutes ago.
That makes so much sense. It creates a processing bottleneck.
You are literally overwriting the negative emotional state by assigning their prefrontal cortex a new, moderately demanding task.
You are distracting them from the weirdness.
Yes. Furthermore, by giving them the floor to speak, you are feeding their high-pride architecture in a really healthy way.
Because you're asking for their opinion.
Exactly. You are asking for their perspective, which signals respect and value. That brings you closer together without altering the flat power dynamic you just established.
So what does this all mean in practice? Let me challenge the execution of this.
Okay, go for it.
Because the transition seems a bit precarious. Like, if someone sighs heavily, stares blankly into the middle distance, and then abruptly turns to me and asks, "What's your favorite day of the week?"
Yeah, that's weird.
I am going to think their operating system just rebooted. It feels like total conversational whiplash.
It does.
So how does this specific type of question bridge the gap between "I am physically exhausted" and "let's have a fun conversation again"?
You're completely right. The whiplash effect is a genuine risk if the technique is applied without structure.
So there's a structure to it.
The framework emphasizes that the cognitive pivot must be structurally linked to the light self-disclosure. They are two halves of the same conversational maneuver.
You can't just drop the question out of nowhere.
You absolutely cannot deploy the question in a vacuum. The architecture requires stating the neutral fact and then using a component of that fact to pivot into the related question.
Oh, I see.
So you experience the energy crash. You say, Fridays always make fatigue pile up. By the way, what's your favorite day of the week?
Oh. The word Friday serves as the anchor.
Exactly.
It acts as the structural bridge between your internal state and the external question.
It utilizes natural associative logic. You explained your physical state using a day of the week, which makes a subsequent question about days of the week feel like a totally logical progression of thought.
Rather than a jarring change of subject.
Right. The transition feels seamless to the listener because it follows a predictable semantic pathway.
That's so clever.
It is. However, the framework issues a really severe warning regarding this phase.
Warning.
Yes. The selection of the topic itself is a complete minefield. You cannot simply ask any question.
Okay, let's get into topic selection. Because if we view conversation as a series of stepping stones across a river,
I like that.
some of those stones are structurally sound, and some are covered in moss that will drop you right back into the freezing water.
That is a perfect way to look at it. The primary rule here is the absolute avoidance of negative or heavy topics that are disguised as humor.
Which is what everyone does.
It is perhaps the most common trap people fall into. When the atmosphere is tense, the default human instinct is to use humor to alleviate the pressure.
We just want to make a joke to cut the tension.
Right, but people often resort to self-deprecating or morbid humor. The specific example the framework calls out is the urge to say something like, I want to drink until I have a hangover.
On a superficial level, that sounds like a lighthearted joke, right?
Yeah.
Just about letting off steam or partying.
Sure, it sounds casual. But if we analyze the semantic subtext of a hangover, it introduces incredibly heavy themes.
Because it invokes concepts of physical illness and aging and bodily pain.
Exactly. You are actively trying to escape an atmosphere of physical exhaustion, and your proposed solution is to introduce the concept of a chemically induced state of ultimate physical exhaustion.
You are dragging the conversation right back into the mud. You stepped right on the mossy stone.
You did. It reinforces the negative physiological state rather than escaping it.
So what's the dry stone? What is the right path?
The guidance provided by the framework is to pivot toward entirely neutral topics that allow the partner to showcase their knowledge or analytical skills.
Give me an example.
The recommended alternative is to ask a question regarding, say, professions that require weekend work.
Let's trace that full conversational flow to see how that operates in practice.
Okay, let's do it.
You start with the bridge. Fridays make fatigue pile up.
Yep.
You pivot to the associated question. What is your favorite day of the week?
The partner allocates cognitive load to answer, perhaps saying they prefer Saturdays.
And then you validate that response and introduce the analytical question.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It must be incredibly demanding for people in professions that require weekend work. What kind of industries do you think handle the hardest weekend shifts?
Analyzing that final question reveals exactly why it is perfectly calibrated for a high-pride partner.
How so?
Because by asking them to evaluate weekend professions, you are inviting them to step into a position of sociological observation.
You are granting them intellectual authority.
Exactly. You are asking them to navigate their feelings about your exhaustion, which requires vulnerable emotional labor.
Which they might resent doing.
Right. You are asking them to analyze external societal structures, which is a dry, safe, intellectual exercise.
It plays directly to their desire to be perceived as knowledgeable and competent.
And by chaining these cognitive tasks together, moving from the associative memory of their favorite day to the analytical evaluation of weekend labor, their working memory is continuously occupied.
There is absolutely zero cognitive bandwidth left to process the awkward silence that occurred just moments prior. It functions as a conversational sleight of hand.
It really is magic.
You are directing their focus so efficiently that the atmosphere is completely repaired without them ever consciously realizing it was broken.
And if we look at the long-term impact of this technique, ending the interaction on this engaged, intellectually stimulating note leverages what we call recency bias.
The idea that we remember the end of something most clearly.
Yes. The final moments of the conversation dictate the emotional impression they carry into the next meeting.
So you've successfully managed a high-pride personality, you forgave your own fatigue, and you engineered a positive outcome purely through the structure of your conversation.
You avoided the instinct to grovel.
You avoided the uncanny valley of faking high energy.
And you simply relied on the structural mechanics of dialogue. It is the practical application of conversational engineering.
I love that term, conversational engineering.
Yeah.
So synthesizing this entire framework for you listening out there.
The big takeaways.
Right. The crucial takeaway is that a sudden biological energy crash is not a fatal blow to an interaction.
The physical exhaustion is not the threat.
Exactly. The subsequent panic is the threat. We have to resist the gravitational pull of the endless apology.
Because it's a trap.
We have to recognize that apologizing too much only serves to unbalance the power dynamic, and it triggers the superiority complex of a high-pride partner.
Instead, we use a single, neutral sentence of light self-disclosure to externally explain the mood.
Fridays make fatigue pile up.
Right. And finally, we immediately deploy a structurally linked, thought-provoking question to hijack their cognitive load.
Building a bridge away from the fatigue and toward their intellectual engagement.
Analyzing this framework leaves us with a highly provocative concept to consider regarding our own emotional regulation, honestly.
Oh, lay it on me.
Well, we have spent this whole deep dive deconstructing how to utilize cognitive hijacking to manage the mood of a partner, specifically a partner with high pride. But if the human brain, with all its amazing complexities, is so easily distracted from a negative emotional state by a simple semantic question like, what's your favorite day of the week?
Wow. Okay, where are you going with this?
What does that reveal about the architecture of our own stubborn, bad moods?
Oh, that is an incredibly sharp observation. Wait, really think about that.
If we are that susceptible to a cognitive pivot, how authentic is our own lingering frustration?
So the next time you find yourself holding on to a dark mood during an interaction,
Or feeling slighted by a silence?
right, it is completely worth examining the root of that feeling.
Are you genuinely, fundamentally upset about a structural flaw in the relationship?
Or is your prefrontal cortex simply understimulated?
Has your partner just failed to present you with a cognitive task interesting enough to overwrite your negative emotion?
We might not be as deeply entrenched in our moods as we believe. We may just be waiting for the right conversational architecture to hijack us out of them.
It's a completely different way to look at human interaction.
That reframing completely shifts the responsibility of emotional regulation. We aren't necessarily trapped in the heavy air, we just need a better cognitive distraction.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into conversational mechanics.
It's been a great discussion.
We highly encourage you to take these strategies, specifically the concept of light self-disclosure and cognitive hijacking, and test them in your own interactions.
They really work?
The next time you feel your energy flatline and the atmosphere turn heavy, remember, don't perform the unnatural jog to cover up the stumble.
Just state the neutral fact.
Exactly. Just state the neutral fact and ask them to analyze the calendar. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.